few months in, they started using they for me. They didn't misgender me anymore because it had gotten to this point of, okay, this felt really weird in the beginning, but I guess Devan is just a person after all.
You're listening to the QT podcast, where we explore how queer professionals and entrepreneurs are building a brighter future for queer communities and the tech industry at large. I'm Margi Marchetti. My pronouns are they, them, and welcome to the QT podcast. So I would just start by asking you, how did you get into tech as a psychologist, and what was your professional journey that led you there?
A little bit all over the place, which could just as well be the tagline of my life. I did graduate with my doctorate in psychology, and only applying to academic jobs, I went out and looked at what is out there. I was very fortunate to find a specific queer recruiter, so I never had to maneuver the whole, okay, am I out, am I not out, who knows what. He goes and finds jobs where it's pretty much guaranteed that, okay, at least they have some idea what's coming up. And he calls me one day and says, hey, there's this company that's looking for a sales enablement person. I'm sitting there, what even is sales enablement? So I go on Google and figure it out. And it really is a training position in a lot of ways. So I'm sitting there, okay, I'm a psychologist. I know how people tick. I can teach about communication. I have a ton of background for international communication since, well, you can hear my accent. I'm a little bit from all over the place again, and say, okay, fine, I'll try it out. So I end up doing sales enablement in a SaaS company, small Halifax startup. And within a few months, my one-on-ones with my manager kind of end up being this, okay, actually, I'm coaching him just as much as he's coaching me. And then the other managers start hearing about it. And I'm starting to get those side pokes. Hey, Devan, I heard you do that coaching stuff. Could I have a session? And it went from there. And at some point, the people team was this is ridiculous. Let's poach you. Come over to us. Come to the dark side of ops. Let's have you officially work with all the managers. And from that point on, it really was this beautiful double role where it becomes so clear that actually having a psychologist in a company is a huge advantage for the company, because nobody thinks about it, but the hardest part, even in tech, is still working with people. So having somebody whose entire job it is to figure out where are the communication barriers, how can people in sales sell better, in marketing formulate stuff that is really getting to the emotional, having people in engineering actually be able to communicate, okay, our tech brains really down in the details to everybody who's customer facing, all of these things. And I know I keep saying communication, which is only one part of psychology, but it's probably the one that tech really needs, which then ended up with me going, okay, I'm a psychologist already. What would be the good sidestep? So I went and got myself a coaching certification, which came in really handy when the company sadly had a layoff, as we all know how the market is. And I found Chili Piper that had an internal coaching position open at the time. How often does it happen that you see a job ad and you go down the list and it's actually, yes. Something's wrong here. 100% of all of them, that doesn't happen in real life. So I go in and apply and got in. And the beauty there is I got to coach everybody, not just as leadership, but everything from individual contributors up to the C-suite.
After your doctorate, did you feel like you already wanted to coach, or was it something that just came because you met people?
I didn't plan on it at all. So this was this beautiful thing of, okay, I'm going in here, I'm doing training, I'm designing courses, I'm doing full programs, I'm having one-on-one sessions with people. And it was just what crystallized out naturally on, hey, where do we have the biggest impact? Is this those, I'm going to be arrogant here, those well-functioning, interactive, self-led courses? Or is it actually putting Devan in front of people where with managers is more often one-on-one than it is in workshops, which of course I still also do, since that's something I've done through my entire university career.
Is there something you had to learn talking to managers in tech? Is there a way that you had to adapt to them and to adapt your techniques to them?
Definitely. But I would argue as a trained psychologist, you already know that the biggest part is who's your audience. you need to really get into this mind space. And here's where psychology and coaching really goes beautiful hand in hand, because psychology in a lot of ways is looking backwards. What got you to the spot you are in right now? And coaching is looking forward. Okay, now that we've established how you got here, how can we get you moving forward to the goal you've set? That honestly was the biggest difference, because all the coaching I had done up to that point was actually very personal coaching. Here's probably where it becomes a good tie-in with my queer background. My first coaching sessions ever, unprepared, no training whatsoever, was when I was on the board of an international queer society back in Norway. At that point in time, Norway's asylum seeker rules did not include queer identities. So we had a person who came in as an asylum seeker and was sent back to their home country being told, just go back in a closet. They got sent back 2 weeks later. We heard the family had done an honor killing on them. So we suddenly have this massive amount of people from similar countries terrified that that's going to be their fate going forward. So we started, obviously, a huge campaign. We went to the media. We managed to shift the laws of the country, and I'm really proud of that. But there was a lot of in the background for me where, as the only psychologist in the organization, I suddenly was number one mental health support for everyone. So I got thrown into coaching at the deep end of the pool, basically. Oh, how can I move forward when I don't know if my life is going to end in 3 weeks? Going from that to coaching managers on how can I better support my employees, how can I improve my communication and time management, really didn't feel like that big of a challenge at this point. I can do leadership, but I can do survival coaching.
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely understand. How did you get from Norway to Canada?
For my PhD, actually, I have a European background. I did my bachelor and master in Norway, and then I've got to say how it is, I did country shopping. I felt Norway was a little bit too small for me, and it came out between New Zealand and Canada as in best places to be social, culturally, politically, and all that. I was a little bit on a, if Norway feels a bit too remote, maybe I shouldn't go to an island in the middle of an ocean. So not New Zealand, it was Canada.
Do you feel like that was the right choice?
It definitely was. At this point, I've been in Canada for a good 10 years, and it absolutely is home. I moved from BC to Nova Scotia, so I've been from coast to coast to coast. And I love this country. I don't want to leave.
For people who want to move to Canada, the fact that it can be your home, I think it's a very strong message for everybody who wants to get there.
Hi, I'm Dae, the producer of the QT podcast. The QT podcast hosts interviews with inspiring 2S LGBTQ+ professionals and entrepreneurs in the tech ecosystem. We've created this podcast with the hopes to influence positive cultural change by creating a platform for sharing experiences, achievements, and challenges faced by members of the 2S LGBTQ+ community. Thank you for listening.
In this podcast, we want to know about your professional experience, but also your journey as a queer person and your story of coming out to yourself and to the community around you, if you want to share.
I think to myself nearly was the bigger one in some ways. I identify as genderqueer or non-binary, to use the standard Canadian term here, and I am in that age group where that wasn't a thing in representation when I was younger. So there has been for a very long time okay, something is going on, something is off. I'm this person who at age 7 very loudly declared themselves to be a lesbian because it was the closest I could come. Okay, all those Amazonian women that don't really fit your standard idea of femininity, I guess that's me. And then when I got to university, I started seeing queer organizations. Really, that's what it were. And I was too shy to walk up to them at that point. But it did help me on, okay, maybe I should just start looking into it. And then it sounds so silly when I say it out loud, but it literally scrolling through Wikipedia, your LGBTQ portal, what are the different things? And you read the definition of genderqueer and you're sitting there, oh my God, there's a word for me. And then from that point onward, it became, okay, now I have an idea about myself, but what do I do with the outside world? And I would say that family was much harder than work. There's so much worry around the how's this going to be? Am I going to be respected? But I think I have a little bit of privilege there that I started in academia and in psychology at that even. So my grand total coming out really was this email sent out across the department. I was the first person in the department, so nobody had a clue how to do this. So this was basically on a, hey, Devan, so you want to come out? Yeah, we have no idea. You do this. Figure it out. So great. So much for process. But it ended up being really nice. I sent this email out saying, hey, I've done the part of my transition that I want to. You know me by insert that name. I'm going forward, being known as Devan. My pronouns are they, them. Nothing needs to change for you. I'm still the person running and list of things. And it was so fascinating because I had people send me emails to my old email being really worried because, oh no, we love having you here. We don't want to miss you. And I'm sitting there, this is not a new person. This is still me. Don't worry. We're not switching me out. And I had super supportive emails as well. With, oh my God, this is so awesome. I'm so glad we have somebody who feels safe enough to speak up and come out. And thanks for being the first one. So there really wasn't a lot of negativity around it. Sure, some people weren't quite sure what to make of it. Some people never got my pronouns right. That very much felt more like just ignorance than malicious. Going into tech was maybe a little bit more of a hurdle, I would say. So yes, there can be a little bit of a tech bro thing going on, and especially the last company I am in, is international. So this is where it becomes really interesting to me, because now suddenly you're not just working with folks from Canada, which overall is a pretty progressive and open-minded country. Sure, we have our own problems, but on average, people are at least familiar with what queer folks are. But then suddenly you're working with people from Eastern Europe, for example, where we have Polish folks. A third of the country has declared themselves LGBT-free zones. So you go into meetings and, okay, I'm not sure what's going to happen here. Yes, I did have negative experiences as well. Basically, first meeting I have with one of our really high-ranking managers. I'm sitting there, I'm introducing myself, I'm adding my pronouns, and the wall comes up. I get this is important for our CEO, but maybe don't do this with us engineers. I'm sitting there, kind of flabbergasted, not quite sure what to do. So basically just ran through, ignored everything, and okay, let's focus on work. Went back to my manager, who pretty much was so offended on my behalf, which it was really helpful for me. And I really think that's what it comes down to. Even if you have negative experiences in the company, as long as the people you work with the closest are supportive, they can buffer across so much. And that's the person who you're going to interview with. So I would be very, very open right there. And it was helpful for me. But then the beauty of it is, over the months and weeks that I kept working with these people, I didn't add my pronouns to my introductions. I just had them sitting on my Zoom profile, on my Slack profile. And a few months in, they started using they for me. They didn't misgender me anymore because it had gotten to this point of, okay, this felt really weird in the beginning, but I guess Devan is just a person after all. And to me, that was probably one of the most impactful things ever. Because here I am, I don't even have to teach to those folks. I'm not doing any psychology training. I'm not doing diversity training with them. I just exist. I just talk to them, do my job with them. And that is enough to change some people's perceptions.
Did they ask you questions or did you have casual conversations about it? No?
No, that was an interesting thing. Nobody really outright asked. I did have some events for Pride that year, so I did lead a session on the genderbread person, but nobody from those groups were in there. Now, I have no clue if they watched a recording or looked at the cards because they didn't feel safe asking, but it changed over time. I should amend that I had one person later in casual conversation bring it up to me, somebody from Southern America, so Portuguese speaker, And his biggest worry when he the first time saw my pronoun was, oh, I'm going to screw this up. I so know that my English isn't going to keep up with that. And then he said there, and then later I realized I never need to use your pronouns while talking to you. So actually, this is not a worry I need to have. So that was the big thing for him right there. And it was really beautiful to see because I know his background and my background are so different. But we focused on the persons first and built a relationship without ever explicitly talking about it at that point, and it just became normal.
That's beautiful. This gives me so much hope. It's lovely.
Hi there, I'm Andy, the COO and co-founder of QueerTech, and my pronouns are he, him. I'm excited to take this opportunity to tell you about QueerTech's digital community. The QueerTech digital community is a safe virtual space for 2S LGBTQ+ people who work with or have an interest in technology. In the digital community, members can connect, share experiences, and learn best practices. The community promotes diversity, equity, and inclusion in the tech industry, empowering members to achieve their goals and drive change. Learn more about our services and events at queertech.org.
Hi, my name is Naufel. I am the CEO and co-founder of QueerTech. And QueerTech is a nonprofit based in Montreal. And our mission is about queering the tech ecosystem. And what it means is increasing 2S LGBTQ representation in the tech industry, helping queer people advance their career in tech and launching tech businesses.
Continue on your professional experience. Did you ever participate in D&I initiatives at work?
I tend to be this person that if there isn't a DEI council, I'll found one. Or if there is one by day 2, I'm normally in. It's literally a running joke in my life at this point. I mean, in the first company I was in, Black Lives Matter movement had just started about a week or 2 before I got hired in. And they were saying, there, oh God, we need to comment on that. We need to make a DEI stance. And then it percolated through, wait a second, didn't we just hire somebody who has a DEI advocate on their resume? So I got this poke. So by the way, Devan, I know you're really new to the company, but do you want to lead our company-wide all hands on this? And I'm sitting there, well, I guess this is my life now. So
what did you do then? Like, how did you develop it?
Essentially, I did go in there and I led a conversation. I like to use brave spaces rather than safe spaces approach, which is there company-wide to get the conversation started. And I made a very strong stance about we cannot just do this as a one-off conversation on the all hands. We need to have an actual council for this, a committee for this. I said, I'm willing to lead this. I need volunteers. I can't do this on my own. I had people step up. I had folks who, yes, had been openly queer come in on the, hey, this means the world to me that now we have this official, even on our webpage. My name is listed as I am on this committee. We're making this really visible. Sure, there's only always so much you can do with a committee unless you have directly somebody from C-suite on it. But starting it, being visible, having folks be able to, hey, there's somebody I can go to, makes a huge difference.
What are the main challenges that you faced in this experience?
I'm going to lean myself a little bit on a framework here. I know the academic in me never shuts up. Because you cannot have a DEI council do anything unless there are 3 things right there. You need to have the lived experience on it, so the folks on the council can't be your out group, your majority out group that is going to do it for the poor minority group. You need to have the experience in how to lead these things. You shouldn't have folks that have no experience in facilitating workshops be put in a position, hey, I'm the only person here who can speak to this, so I guess now I'm going to do it. Because that is just tokenizing. It's working off free labor as per usual. And then the third one, which tends to be the challenge I run into, is you have to have power on those. You can have the most beautiful, diverse experience, lived experience on it. You can have top facilitators, trainers, coaches, whatnot on this group. If you don't actually have the ability to push the decisions you make through, you might just as well save everybody the time and effort.
What would you recommend to someone who wants to either start or lead or participate in a D&I ERG?
I think you said the right word right there. Start with an ERG. especially if you yourself aren't on the people team, HR, C-suite, whatever that you want to call those folks that already are there to really take a look at what is the culture, what is the day-to-day interactions we're having. Somebody from sales, marketing, engineering, whatever, can be the head of an ERG and have a huge impact just by building the internal community. But even as a head of an ERG, the first thing you should be doing is go talk to your people team. What is the process for an ERG? Do we have a process for an ERG? If we don't have a process, can you folks go and make one? I need a budget. I need to have things that I know how to deal with. This shouldn't be a one-person job. This shouldn't be something that is just being put on the first person to step up. Community, community, community.
Community is really the core of the queer experience, isn't it? Whether that is at work or with your friends or somewhere else, we do need community. That's how we survive, I guess.
I think it really shows also in how we deal with the current situation. Open cards on the table. We just did have a layoff at my company, so I'm no longer an internal coach. I have been shifted to a very reduced number of hours external coaching contract, but it actually feels like an opportunity in a lot of ways. And because of my community, because this doesn't feel like, oh my God, my job kicked me out, what do I do now? No, I immediately had people who stepped up, who gave me a safety net, who did everything from emotional support to, okay, let's go over your resume. You don't have to do this alone. Let's figure something out. Let me ask around for you. I would honestly say in our current market, we have a leg up over the cis heteronormative crowd because we already know how it feels like. Everything is against us. We need to go headwind through with the head through the wall with our community and just deal with all the struggles. For some people, that's not an experience they've ever had in their life. So it's much harder for them. For us, it feels like, okay, this is just another Tuesday. I'm a very, very strong believer, and this is my psychologist hat on here, that you need to give yourself a bit of time to process through stuff. Now, having a layoff, being fired, your company going under, any of that is gonna just go right into our very deep programmed in psychology, where this is a stress situation. And let's be honest, we didn't quite evolve to have a 9-to-5 job and get a layoff from it. So the only way our brain can react to this is basically fight, flight, or freeze. We all have a favorite thing of those three. Mine happens to be fight. So yes, my first instinct is to keep running, stick all my energy in there, start shotgunning resumes every which way. And I would argue that's about the worst possible thing I could have done. The first few resumes you're going to shoot out are always going to look the worst. Any interview you land while you're in that state, you're going to blunder through. You're way too emotional. Your brain does not have the capacity. So yes, definitely take a step back. Reach out to the community, get your personal support sorted first, because, again, psychology speaking, cognitive load is real, and emotions go right on the cognitive load. Anybody who's gone through the pandemic probably has a little bit of idea. There's nothing specific happening right now, but why can't I focus? Because there's so much going on around us, and our brains can only process so much, so take as many things off the to-do, off the emotional charts, off the I don't know what to do charts, to give yourself the levity, the relaxation you need to be able to focus on the one thing you really need to do at that moment. And that is actually not necessarily going out shotgun ending resume. It's figuring out what do you really want to do going forward.
How do you realize when you get to that moment? How do you understand when you went through the first processing phase and you are ready to ask yourself that question?
Now, the cheat answer to that would be when you go to bed in the evening and your last thoughts before falling asleep aren't about work anymore, which I know is a hard state to get to for a lot of people, which I would argue, and I know that sounds absolutely terribly opportunistic, but if you never get to that state, you need some external help. That's exactly what a psychologist, a good friend, a coach or so can do for you. Again, back with the evolution. I'm not even an evolutionary psychologist, but we have evolved to be in a community. We are a highly social species. talking it out with somebody can make all the difference in the world. The way we process internal thoughts and hearing ourselves say stuff actually goes through two different parts in your brain. So try it out.
Do you think that people working in the tech industry have more or less issues when they have to face these layoffs or these like strong events that happen work-wise because of specificity of the industry?
I think it depends on which specific department you're in. Now, I do a lot of coaching with engineers who, on average, not every single last one of them, of course, but we do see a higher level of neurodiversity in engineers. And we do know that overwhelm comes faster for folks on the spectrum, but for all neurodiverse folks. By the way, hi, me, that's me too. So it can be harder there because we feel so comfortable with the routine. We want a certain level of stability. We don't want to constantly context switch. At the same time, we also often are so curious, we're so driven, we have such a vast amount of specialized knowledge in our field that when a layoff happens, as long as we focus on, okay, what do I want to do? What can I do? And do take the time to look around as much as we can, of course, because yes, there's financial constraints. I would argue we're better off in the tech field because it's an international field. It's probably the field where you have the most remote chances. So even if you can't find something in your city, your province, your country, you might find the perfect opportunity right now over in the European Union.
I think it's all about like giving yourself the time though to understand all these things, because it's difficult to go through this when you are in the middle, of the rejection, because a layoff is in the end like professional and sometimes personal. It feels like personal rejection, doesn't it?
It very much is. And I'm going right back. I can't get the psychologist out of my brain because neurodiverse folks, especially ADHD, is incredibly common to have social rejection sensitivity. So it hits you even harder. There is a lot of, even if it's a layoff, even though you logically speaking know, I didn't do anything wrong, I worked as hard as I could, this is the market. It still can feel like, oh, this is my fault. I should have done this, I should have done that. Taking that step back and refocusing on this is what I know, this is what I want, let's go out there, is really the most important part of it. Leave the past where it is, the layoff has happened, it's behind you at this point. Give yourself the time to make it feel like it's behind you.
Do you feel like you want to keep working in tech? Is this an industry that you're interested in?
I definitely think so. To me, it really comes down to tech is the most international field in a lot of ways. I love remote work. And it gives me the chance to be a part of a sector that, point one, I never thought I would have gotten into. That was not what I thought, hey, I'm going to get a PhD in psychology. I'm going to work at a tech company. No, not really. But it's also so often at the front of the innovation. Everybody at the moment, of course, is talking AI. And I'm sitting there. This sounds like a really engineering field. But who here has thought about, do you need a psychologist? Because what is the thing doing? It's learning. I'm a learning specialist. Even if I'm not a machine learning specialist, anything we create comes from what we teach, how we interact with our technology, what data we put in there. And if you take the human approach out of it, we're not going to have as impactful of a product, to put this very financially speaking. So I really think that for folks like me who don't have a tech background, taking a look at how can I fit into tech, open up so many doors, so many possibilities, and working with folks that they would otherwise never have met and having an impact too. And that for me is very personally giving. I love being this person that, okay, one of those weird queers, I guess we'll do this. 3 months later, oh, it's Devan. It's fine. Normalizing it, being in a field where it isn't so secluded in a lot of ways. I think we don't have the chance to do that in a lot of other sectors.
Yeah, this is something that I personally learned through these interviews as well that we had with the podcast. There are so many people that work in tech that come from the most diverse backgrounds, and it's so fascinating and interesting. And when it comes to innovation, it's exactly what you said. Innovation comes from something that it's not necessarily like within tech or extremely techy, but it comes from creativity and psychology and so many different fields that in the end can be applied to tech. Sometimes I feel like people can be a bit scared to enter to tech or to take the first step because they're like, I don't have enough skills. And actually we do. So what would you say to someone that think they don't have technical skills? And what would you say to someone that it's in this between situation?
That the tech sector is so much broader than just the engineers who do the actual technical skills. If you have a humanities background, you belong in marketing. That is exactly where you can use those beautiful communication skills of you. Psychology, try the people sector. If you have an MBA, you know that you belong in sales anyway. So no matter what your background is, there's something where you can have a huge impact in the tech sector. Don't go at it with tech sector means very specific skills. I have known people in hiring who have a book publishing background, but that doesn't sound like it goes together. But it's all about how can you actually market yourself? What do you have? What do you want? How can you formulate it in a way that it fits together with what people are looking? And here's the beauty of the tech sector. Startups everywhere. You can be the first person in a department and they will always look for general skills, for somebody who can do a little bit of everything. If you get into some really early startup, 5 people, you really think they only have one skill each? No, they need you.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. What are you looking for next? What is your big dream career step?
Ooh, big dreams. I'm gonna keep being this person. I really like being a jack of all trades. So I did psychology, I did coaching, I have been doing and am doing a lot of people stuff. I'm looking at people analytics next. So yes, I started learning to code. So I want to really take a step further and see, hey, how far can I go with this? I am in tech. I want to be in tech. It helps me relate to more folks. So I'm really interested in being someone's second people team person, for example. And I only say second because I don't like to do recruiting. So my big goal for the upcoming months is keeping on with the coaching, maybe finding an agency so that I can focus on really being in with my clients, be in with the people who need somebody to really focus on their specific challenges and help them go from the past to the future rather than just focusing on how do I get to them. I want to be in with some company that doesn't necessarily need somebody full time. I love the spreading approach. So get a part-time job here, do a part-time job there, do the coaching there, because I love having impact. And the further you can spread yourself, the more you have a network, the more places you have a foot in with, the wider your impact will be. And to me, that includes being a visibly queer person.
Yeah, that was my follow-up question. What about your D&I initiatives and the kind of impact that you want to have there? What would you like to do in the future?
It would be nice for once not to be the very first person in a company to start it. That being said, I honestly am so flexible on that. I just want to be involved in something. If it isn't there, I'm gonna make it. If it is there, I want to take it to the next step. My big dream is to be in a place where we do have somebody from C-suite who's an active advocate. And if that's me, fine.
You know it's probably gonna be you, right?
Well, if there's somebody out there who needs a head of people, hi, I'm available at the moment.
This podcast is powered by the Canada Media Fund. As the country's largest funder of screen content, we are proud to support 2S LGBTQ+ creators. Learn more at cmf-fmc.ca.
At RBC, diversity and inclusion is more than a value. It's a strength, an engine for innovation and economic prosperity. As proud sponsors of QueerTech, RBC puts D&I into action every day by developing strong talent and creating an inclusive workplace that brings their purpose of helping their clients thrive and communities prosper to life. Find out more about tech at RBC and their latest roles on their jobs page.
Did you ever have a strong queer person at work that was kind of supporting you and your initiatives as well? Or were you always the kind of leader in these situations?
A little bit of different situations, really. I tended to be the more or less official head of DEI. But for example, at my last company, we did have queer head of the people department for a while. So that was a huge advantage. And I did have also the advantage that even when it wasn't a queer person themselves, I tended to have somebody up in C-suite who was at least an ally. How active they could be because of, well, C-suite is pretty damn busy themselves, is always the problem. So I strongly recommend any company who can manage to have somebody who's specialized on it so that it doesn't need to be run off the side of the table. It has a huge impact on retention, on engagement, on how much people feel they belong. And we do have the latest studies that is the big challenge in the tech sector in 2023. People are burnt out. People are disengaged. DEI and coaching are probably the two biggest factors a company can provide to push against that.
What is the basic level of D&I involvement that a company should have? You know, given that investment and time and effort is always a big problem, what are the basics? Really, what is the bare minimum that a company could do for this?
The bare minimum is hiring manager training so that you do not end up making your company as you grow it just a carbon copy of who you had before. Bare minimum starts there. Second point is ERGs with a budget and support from at least the people team.
What are some activities if someone is in an ERG and they want to take it to the next level? What kind of activities could they propose or could they do to have an impact?
Again, studies, since I'd like to have my science behind me, the biggest impact comes from mentorship program, an internal mentorship program where folks as high up as possible in a company champion folks that are early in or come from a historical underrepresented group. Now, the best is if you have folks that are within the group themselves, but if that's not possible, it needs to be a mentorship program that goes both ways. Mentoring up is a fairly new concept, but it can make a huge impact where you have somebody from a historically underrepresented group specifically in a position up with somebody high up in the company to point out, making this very safe for them so they cannot be fired over it. Very important point here. Hey, guys, there's some bias going on here. Can I please give my input? That is hugely impactful, the mentoring up so that leadership learns where their own blind spots are, and mentoring down so that folks that don't have as much of a community behind them, traditional privilege behind them, have a chance to work their way up. Because we do know that it is much harder for folks from those groups.
Yeah. You mentioned community again, and I would like to close this amazing conversation asking you, how did the queer community support you throughout your whole journey, personal and professional? What are some key moments that you look back now and you're like, that is the strength of this community?
I think I want to stick that into two different buckets. Bucket number one is organized community, where because others before me had stepped up and made nonprofit organizations, made activist organizations, I had a chance very early on to get experience being on a board, being essentially a manager, organizing huge conferences. So community gave me the ability to find not only my confidence, but also my skills range. And community on a more personal level give me the ability to really learn that no matter what comes my way, I'm never alone. There's somebody who's great at something that I'm not good at, and that's okay. We can work together.
Beautiful. I fully subscribe to this. I experience this daily as well, and I think in the end, this is the beauty of the queer community. Wherever you will go, you will never be alone, because there's always going to be a community that you can contact and you can feel like you belong there. And I think that is something very precious that we have as queer people.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Dr. Devan, for this conversation. It was lovely to hear your story. It was very insightful. I wish you all the best, of course, for your future.
Thank you.
I'm sure you're gonna do amazing things. We're gonna be here looking at you and cheering you up. So yeah, thank you very much again.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me and for asking me all those great questions, giving me a platform.